Yo guys, hello Coach Gabin here. So I want to address a serious issue about Yone. Currently in Yone means we can see a post from Riot Proxon is the general consensus on the team that Yone Yasuo is fine and building correctly. Matt Carrison, the league designer of League, says yes, generally yes, and look at phreak's answer.
That is a good build apparently. Fuck attack speed on Q.
Look at this. Look what Zukil says, guys. Watch out for this.
Yeah, I've been informed we are just building wrong. My bad actually. I've been informed by phreak we're supposed to build Greaves into IE.
But that's also a very weird Graves into IE, because if you think about it, the extreme problem with that is you don't have lethal tempo anymore for attack speed, which is extremely problematic to just get a fat IE. The other thing is that there is a price difference. Notably, Yone's win rate is generally not great after the item changes and removal of lethal tempo. So the difference between, like, let's say IE and Bork or other things is that the components are generally more expensive, and same as IE is more expensive by 200 than Bork and by 300 compared to Kraken, right? The components are generally very cheap on Kraken. On Bork they are also very cheap in general, except like pickaxe may be a bit more difficult to buy, but shouldn't be the end of the world. And so for example, if I queue this dummy, these are its general stats, right? So if I queue this dummy, I deal 174. Now if I crit the dummy with my Q, it will be 264, right? The crits are a bit RNG, so sometimes you make gonna crit, sometimes you will not. Almost like a coin flip, right? And so one thing that I want to point out is that Borg's damage is actually very similar, while notably you have some other utility tools as well, such as a slow attack damage, while also notably you do have attack damage is less, but you get attack speed and lifesteal, which can be sweet on its own, and the slow sometimes can be interesting. So the thing about Blade of the Ruin King is that once you have Alacrity stacked, normally at this point you should have it stacked, so your Q's cooldown is maxed out. I just stacked it as well, fully stacked runes, so our Q is properly usable. The difference will be not much. So this is very consistent. This is not crit based. It does 259, 177, 186, right? And we can see the damage is not way too far. Now this is also a dummy with a generic champion HP, which means that champs like Mundo, whatnot, any type of champs that will build HP, even so bruiser could build HP items, they will take more damage from Pork. This has a generic level 10, level 9 champion HP. For example, Trindamir has at level 9, level 9, 10, around that range, 1800 HP as an example. Many bruisers have around a similar amount of HP, while notably tanks generally have more due to their items. So for example, if someone would have more HP than this amount, then you could get even so more value out of the board, so that's definitely useful. While the good thing about the new Bork is on Yone, that you gotta attack the enemy champion 3 times, not only once, to actually get your slow off, which is actually a good thing for some champs like Pantheon, Yone, whatnot, because when you queue in, you already knock up your opponent for 0.75 seconds, and before it, the slow instantly got procced, which was a problem because you didn't get too much value out of the slow, because after the knock up you had like a window of 0.25 seconds to get value out of that slow, which is borderline nothing. So now the slow is slightly better when it comes to stickiness, and even though the percentage damage got nerfed from 12% to 9, this is kind of a nerf against high HP champions, but it does provide you more lifesteal for more survivability, notably a bit more, I think it's a bit more attack speed and more attack damage, so it's a bit better into squishes. It's supposed to be a bit better into squishes. Now alternatively there is Kraken, but I do believe it's kind of worse. It's kind of worse actually, then Borg, even though its components can be cheaper, it does provide mobility, a bit more attack speed, less AD, and so I think the on hit is just generally worse, because like it's not as it was in the past. So you're gonna deal increased damage up to 150% based on their missing health. So this works with missing health. It doesn't work anymore with say like 2 rotations of Kraken and you get the maximum damage, right? So like when people are low, you're gonna deal like 333, and every 3 basic attack, right? Well, it's kind of good if you're training in and out, and it does provide mobility, but because you already have mobility in your kit and the lifesteal is so sweet and the slow can be nice from Borg, generally speaking, I don't really see like Kraken actually over Borg. That's the thing, it's hard for me to see it because the Borg is just so sweet. So I would just say that don't Kraken it because it don't give crit. Mainly Borg it into something such as I would say like probably Borg, maybe Zeal if you need some extra mobility into an I, or probably you can get it after I as well, or you can also argue get a crit cloak because that will usually just give you enough juice to have like enough crit, right? But you can also get a crit cloak if you wanna build something different, or perhaps like you wanna. It depends, what do you wanna go second? It may depend on your second item quite a lot. But basically, it just depends. Like, what do you wanna counter? What do you wanna like deal with? But basically, I would just mainly recommend like build pad, something like this. You can go crit cloak instead of like Zeal, depending on what do you wanna build. And so of the crit cloak you can go for a bunch of different items depending on what do you want to counter or what do you want to deal with. Generally shield bow third is seen as a good thing because you need some defensive stats. Bloodthirster is also interesting if you're already full crit. About this new item, I don't know how to feel about this arrow thing. So every time you crit you get the bleed, right? But I don't know how good that is. I mean, there are quite a lot of ticks if you think about it. It doesn't beat that bad, I don't suppose, but I'm not sure if that adds up to the E damage, right? Because, what's Malphite? Oh, okay. So does this work on monsters as well or only champions? Okay, so everything. Okay, it's good to know. So it doesn't really show the sec, so it does 150 to a Grom, for example, huh? So it's generally worse than I. So it's a high damage item, which is often not really needed, So I wouldn't necessarily recommend this item just because it's one of those like another DPS choice. But often there are better anti-tank tools you can use, utility things, defensive items. So it's not generally recommended to greed for this much amount of damage. It's generally not recommended to greed for that much. So any of the situation of items from the crit items could be fine. Vitality items are generally dog shit. Iceborne perhaps could be considerable because it does give you some defensive stats plus I don't know honestly how to feel about it. I'm not sure how to feel about it because it doesn't really gives you enough juice. Doesn't really gives you enough well, maybe sometimes I could see it if they have a lot of AD champs and maybe would like to have some extra chasing power, then I could maybe see it being a thing. But the cooldown is kind of bad on QW, that's what I'm thinking of. But it's kind of nice to have a Sheen effect though on Yone. Plus a slow, so that could be arguably a good defensive like bruiser item. The rest of the bruiser items are kind of whatever. Maybe sometimes you could consider a Hullbreaker if you are already full crit. You could consider a good Terminus as well over Lord Dominic's. I think it's a bit more advised to go for this, I do suppose, because the defensive stats can be super sweet. So I think that's also okay to consider. I don't know how to feel about Gwyn, so probably not the best. And there is this Navari Flicker Blade, but this is something I don't know how to feel about it as well, because on Yasuo it's arguably not that bad, because you can reset your window quite nicely, but on Yone, Like, what can you do with it on your own? Maybe Q resets a bit faster. Kinda feels like it resets slightly faster. I mean, your W is kind of an anti-tank tool, or your E resets quite... Like, your E resets quite nicely, I would say. So, for example, I just say I QE, I go back, and your E is up again, so it does actually provide some chasing power, because the item itself also provides speed. I mean, oh fuck, you know, it's interesting to chase, and multiple rotations of W's can be nice. The shield can be sometimes nice, and notably this does HP based damage, so you look, if you max it out, eventually if you max it out, for example, it's gonna deal a decent amount of HP based damage, you know, 15% plus the flat value, which is actually quite nice actually in the later stages of the game, so maybe there is an argument for Navari, but I'm not sure. I don't really have a full opinion about it. Maybe something like this could be considerable just to get those sweet W, perhaps E resets. So maybe it's considerable, but because it's a very cheap IE. Navori into I, so maybe Navori could be arguably interesting. Now you have PD as well for more mobility, but mobility choices are usually not the best because you already have mobility in your kit, so maybe like maybe Navori Flicker Bay could be interesting because there aren't many other like cheap crit choices beside PD, which is often not necessarily needed. So I'm kind of positive about that, you know. So probably like it could be something like this as well. It just this has like way less damage than like IE, but once you get IE, then you're gonna have 100% crit. So probably like I would say like probably like IE then, probably like IE most likely into a crit cloak. Yeah, I would say that would be the ideal stuff. Okay, that's it for now, guys. Have a nice day.